Good evening and welcome to the Sleeping Zoo. Facts to fall asleep to. The hedgehog is a creature woven deeply into the tapestry of the old world. A ubiquitous yet profoundly secretive mammal, whose very existence seems to defy the predatory pressures of the modern world, yet whose survival is now more challenging than ever. Across Europe, Asia, and Africa, various species of the Erinaceinae subfamily exist, but we focus primarily on the deeply familiar and culturally significant European hedgehog Erinaceus europaeus, an animal whose success relies on a unique evolutionary blueprint. This small mammal, with its distinctive waddle and nocturnal habits, harbors a remarkable suite of biological adaptations, particularly its iconic armor, that allow it to persist in landscapes from wild hedgerows to manicured suburban gardens. To truly understand this charming enigma, we must first delve into the intricacies of its physiology, a marvel of specialized defense and metabolic control. The defining characteristic of the hedgehog, its evolutionary signature, is its coat of spines or quills. These are not simply hairs that have stiffened. They are highly specialized structures, unique in their construction and deployment, offering unparalleled passive defense. A single European hedgehog carries between 5,000 and 7,000 individual quills, each one being a modified hair shaft composed of keratin. These quills are hollow, lightweight structures, divided into multiple chambers by thin septa, or internal walls, which makes them both incredibly strong and surprisingly resilient to impact. This compartmentalization is key, functioning as a sophisticated shock absorber. When the animal curls into its defensive ball, the quills act like individual tiny springs, distributing the force of a blow across the entire body surface and protecting the internal organs from the blunt trauma of a predator's attack. The hollowness also contributes to the animal's relatively low density, aiding movement, although the overall weight of the armor can still account for a significant percentage of its body mass. The mechanism by which the quills are deployed is a marvel of muscular anatomy. The entire defensive maneuver is powered by a massive, highly developed sheet of muscle just beneath the skin known as the panniculus carnosus. This muscle sheet is unique in its completeness, effectively forming a biological drawstring bag. When danger is sensed, the hedgehog contracts this muscle with immense force, pulling the skin tight around its body. The process rolls the animal into a near-perfect sphere, entirely enclosing its vulnerable head, limbs, and underbelly beneath a dome of sharp, erect spines. The quills themselves are rooted in the skin by an intricate system of tiny muscles, allowing the hedgehog to raise and lower them individually. When fully erect, the quills are set at opposing angles, creating a three-dimensional barrier that is virtually impenetrable to most medium-sized predators. Furthermore, the hedgehog employs a dramatic circulatory shift during hibernation, a period of profound metabolic suppression that allows it to survive the long, food-scarce winter months. Hibernation is not merely sleep. It is a state of controlled facultative endothermy, a radical physiological downshift that represents one of the most remarkable feats in the mammalian kingdom. To prepare for this monumental rest, the hedgehog Erinaceus europaeus engages in an intense period of hyperphagia, or excessive feeding, during late summer and autumn, aiming to accumulate substantial fat reserves. For successful hibernation, the animal typically needs to achieve a body weight of at least 600 grams, ensuring it has enough fuel to last through the 5 to 7 months of inactivity, a period generally spanning October through April, depending on the climatic zone. The fat accumulated is not just for insulation, it is the vital metabolic fuel. Once the ambient temperature drops below about 10 degrees Celsius and the food supply dwindles, the hedgehog constructs its specialized hibernation nest, or dray, which we will discuss more in the habitat section. Within this secure enclosure, the physiological transformation begins. The hedgehog's core body temperature drops precipitously, plunging from its active state of approximately 35 degrees Celsius down to a mere 1 to 5 degrees Celsius, sometimes even falling to ambient air temperature, provided it remains above freezing. Simultaneously, the heart rate slows dramatically from an active rate of around 190 beats per minute to an astonishingly low 5 to 10 beats per minute. Respiration also becomes almost imperceptible, with the animal taking a shallow breath only once every few minutes, an incredible slowing of the vital life processes. Crucially, this is not a continuous sleep. The hedgehog enters periods of deep torpor, lasting several weeks, but these are invariably interrupted by periodic spontaneous bouts of arousal, during which the animal rapidly warms itself back up to its normal body temperature within a few hours. These arousal periods are the most energetically expensive part of hibernation, costing up to 80% of the total energy budget for the entire winter. The purpose of these arousals is still under scientific investigation, but leading theories suggest they are necessary for processes that cannot function at near-freezing temperatures, such as DNA repair, restoring neurological functions, or perhaps managing the massive accumulation of metabolic waste products, which are toxic at normal temperatures but are produced too slowly to pose an immediate threat during torpor. The entire physiological ballet of hibernation is a testament to the hedgehog's mastery over its own metabolism. But it is a strategy that only works if sufficient fat reserves are maintained, underscoring the delicate balance between foraging success and winter survival. Beyond the physical defenses and metabolic extremes, the hedgehog relies on highly developed senses to navigate its nocturnal world. While its vision is notably poor, serving mainly to detect broad movements and light changes, the hedgehog compensates with an extraordinary sense of olfaction or smell, which is its primary sensory tool. Its long, moist nose is constantly twitching, sampling the air and ground for minute scent cues. This powerful nose is used to locate prey hidden beneath leaf litter or shallow soil, and to track potential mates. Its sense of hearing is also acute, allowing it to detect the rustling and scratching sounds of insects, worms, and small invertebrates that form the bulk of its diet, providing an auditory overlay to its olfactory-driven hunting. This sensory capacity culminates in one of the most bizarre and unique behaviors observed in the animal kingdom: self-anointing or self-smearing. When a hedgehog encounters a strong, novel, or unpleasant smell, such as a toxic plant, a strong soap, or even its own feces in a foreign context, it begins to produce large amounts of frothy, sticky saliva. It then performs a complex contortionist act, twisting its neck and head to lick this saliva and foam all over its quills, covering them with the scented mixture. The process can take up to 20 minutes and often leaves the animal looking completely exhausted, and strangely manic. Several theories attempt to explain this strange behavior. One dominant hypothesis suggests that the hedgehog is chemically sampling its environment, possibly testing the toxicity of a substance or using the scent as a form of chemical camouflage or repellent. For instance, if the animal encounters toad skin, which contains toxins, it anoints itself with the toad's secretions, effectively placing those toxins onto its own armor. This would suggest that the quills are not merely a physical barrier, but are also capable of carrying a chemical defense layer, adding another fascinating dimension to its already impressive physiology. The act remains one of the most observed yet least understood behaviors in mammalian biology, perfectly encapsulating the unique character of Erinaceus europaeus. The entire life cycle of the European hedgehog is a study in behavior governed by solitude, nocturnal hunting, and the imperative of seasonal survival. As primarily nocturnal and generally solitary creatures, the peak activity period for a hedgehog begins shortly after sunset, continuing until the early hours of dawn. During this time, the animal can travel surprising distances, often covering 1 to 3 kilometers in a single night as it systematically forages for food. These movements define its home range, which varies significantly depending on the landscape. In highly food-rich, urban gardens, the home range may be relatively small, perhaps covering only 10 hectares, while in fragmented rural habitats, a male's territory can extend well over 30 hectares in search of adequate resources and mates. Hedgehogs are not strictly territorial in the way many carnivores are. While they will maintain a preferred feeding and resting area, their home ranges often overlap considerably. Encounters between two hedgehogs are generally brief and non-violent, although males may engage in pushing contests during the breeding season. The only consistently defended areas are the maternity nests, which a female will guard aggressively against any intruder, even a male. The general solitude of the hedgehog is an efficient strategy for a small, slow-moving insectivore. Solitary hunting maximizes the yield from scattered prey without the energetic cost of competition, allowing the animal to maintain a state of continuous foraging throughout its active months. The foraging behavior itself is a deliberate, systematic process reflecting its insectivorous diet. The hedgehog moves with a purposeful, noisy rustle through the undergrowth, utilizing its acute sense of smell and hearing. It sniffs and probes the ground, leaf litter, and vegetation, using its strong snout and small claws to overturn small stones, roots, and debris to access hidden prey. The hedgehog's diet is fundamentally that of an opportunistic invertivore, and its dentition reflects this niche, having a set of 44 sharp, pointed teeth designed for tearing and crushing the exoskeletons of insects. While commonly believed to subsist primarily on slugs and snails, which it does eat, the core diet of Erinaceus europaeus is far more diverse and nutritious, focused on larger, protein-rich prey. Its preferred food sources are earthworms, beetles, caterpillars, and various insect larvae. It is also capable of taking on formidable prey, utilizing its speed and the protection of its spines to manage dangers such as wasps, bees, and even small snakes. The hedgehog's relative resistance to certain venoms, including those of some vipers, adds another layer of complexity to its ecological role as a successful, if messy, small-scale hunter. It is not averse to scavenging, readily consuming carrion, eggs of ground-nesting birds, or small mammals and amphibians if the opportunity arises, demonstrating a flexible foraging strategy essential for surviving the varying resource availability of its chosen habitat. The reproductive behavior of the hedgehog includes a unique and often comical courtship display known as the hedgehog carousel. When a male encounters a female ready to mate, he will circle her persistently, often for hours, nudging her with his snout and emitting a characteristic snorting, chuffing, and persistent wheezing sound. The female, initially reluctant, responds with defensive posturing, often lowering her quills and attempting to fend him off with rapid turns and lunges. The circling, often interrupted by brief periods where the female attempts to retreat, can result in the ground being worn into a circular path, hence the name. Eventually, if the female accepts him, she will flatten her spines and adopt a posture that allows copulation to take place without injury. This elaborate and noisy ritual is a necessary prelude to the most vulnerable stage of the hedgehog life cycle, the raising of the young. The gestation lasts approximately 35 days, resulting in a litter of typically 4 to 5 hoglets. The female prepares a specialized, highly insulated maternity nest, which is distinct from her daytime resting nest. The hoglets are born blind, deaf, and seemingly bare, but are not defenseless. They are born with a thin layer of baby quills, which are white, soft, and covered by a protective layer of fluid-filled skin to prevent injury to the mother during birth. Within hours, these first quills emerge, followed rapidly by the development of the adult, dark-spined armor over the following weeks. Paternal care is non-existent. The male leaves after mating. The young rely entirely on their mother's milk and protection within the nest for their first month. They are weaned and venture out to forage with their mother briefly before becoming completely independent at around 6 to 8 weeks of age. This strict schedule demands that the female find an exceptionally safe and resource-rich habitat to ensure the successful rearing of her young and their subsequent survival through their first critical winter. The ideal habitat for the European hedgehog Erinaceus europaeus is a blend of dense cover for daytime rest and open, resource-rich land for nocturnal hunting, leading to its ubiquitous presence in human-modified landscapes. While hedgehogs are native to woodland edges, hedgerows, and natural grassland, the modern hedgehog has become a highly successful synanthropic species, meaning it thrives in close association with humans, particularly in suburban and rural gardens and parks. The key requirement for a suitable habitat is connectivity and cover. Connectivity refers to the ability of the hedgehog to move freely between foraging areas without encountering fatal barriers. And this is where the modern landscape presents its greatest challenges, which we will address in the conservation discussion. Cover is essential for constructing 2 distinct types of nests: the temporary day nest and the permanent hibernation nest. Day nests, or summer nests, are typically flimsy structures built quickly for temporary shelter during daylight hours. These are usually found tucked away in dense vegetation, beneath thick bushes, log piles, or compost heaps. They are loosely constructed from grass, leaves, and moss, providing protection from the sun, rain, and minor disturbances. The hedgehog may use several different day nests within its home range, moving between them every few nights to avoid parasite buildup and to follow the best foraging areas. The hibernation nest, or dray, is an altogether different architectural challenge, reflecting the critical physiological function it must perform. The dray is a meticulously constructed, highly insulated shelter, often built beneath a shed, dense shrubbery, or a log pile, providing structural support and protection from the weather. Construction is an intensive process, involving the hedgehog meticulously gathering large quantities of dry leaves, grass, and moss, and packing them tightly together. The internal nest chamber is surprisingly small, often only large enough to accommodate the curled-up animal. This dense packing is crucial, creating an air-filled, multi-layered barrier that insulates the animal from freezing ambient temperatures, maintaining the necessary stable microclimate for successful torpor. A poorly constructed dray that allows water to penetrate or cold air to circulate will compromise the hedgehog's ability to conserve energy during hibernation, leading to increased arousal bouts and potentially fatal fat depletion. The success of the hedgehog in urban and suburban environments is largely due to the resource-rich nature of human gardens, which provide an abundance of food and the necessary varied cover through hedgerows, rockeries, and log piles. However, this reliance also presents a unique set of hazards that do not exist in their natural woodland edge habitat, creating an ecological paradox. The hedgehog is adapted to the edge environment, thriving where two different habitats meet, like the transition between forest and field. The urban-rural mosaic, characterized by gardens, allotments, and parks, provides this constant edge habitat, making it an ideal place to live, provided the landscape allows for safe, unimpeded movement between these feeding pockets, a factor that is profoundly influencing its ecology. The ecology of Erinaceus europaeus places it squarely as a highly effective keystone insectivore within the temperate European ecosystem, acting as a natural regulator of invertebrate populations. Its preference for large, protein-rich beetles, caterpillars, and earthworms gives it a crucial ecological niche that is only sparsely filled by other small, nocturnal mammals. Its role as a biological pest controller is significant. By consuming large quantities of ground-dwelling insect larvae, including those of various pest species, the hedgehog provides an invaluable, albeit often uncredited, service in gardens and agricultural settings, reducing the reliance on chemical pesticides. The sheer volume of food it must consume to maintain its weight and prepare for hibernation means a single hedgehog can clear a large number of invertebrates from its foraging range nightly, creating a beneficial pressure on common garden pests. The hedgehog also serves an important role in soil aeration through its constant rooting and sniffing, contributing to the health of the undergrowth and leaf litter environment, an important contribution to nutrient recycling. However, the hedgehog is not without its own ecological pressures, and the most significant predator dynamic in its native range is its complex relationship with the European badger. Badgers are the only natural predator in Britain and much of Western Europe that can consistently overcome the hedgehog's spiny defense. The badger possesses powerful foreclaws and a thick, loose skin that allows it to withstand some degree of the quill attack. Critically, the badger has a specialized technique. Rather than attacking the spiny bowl directly, the badger will use its nose to nudge or roll the hedgehog until it finds the small gap where the hedgehog's defense is weakest, usually around the neck or near the rear legs, or it may simply unroll the hedgehog by persistent harassment. The two species often share the same habitat, and there is a direct correlation. Areas with high badger density frequently exhibit lower hedgehog populations, suggesting strong interspecific competition for shared resources like earthworms and a significant predatory threat. However, the dynamic is complex. Some studies suggest that while badgers prey on hedgehogs, the avoidance behavior of badgers towards urban areas sometimes creates a refuge for hedgehogs in fragmented suburban habitats, where badger pressure is lower. Beyond the badger, the hedgehog's other natural predators include large owls, such as the eagle owl, which can attack the animal from above, where its defense is less effective, and sometimes domestic dogs. However, in the modern landscape, the greatest source of mortality is not a natural predator, but an entirely artificial one: road traffic. The nocturnal foraging behavior, coupled with the slow, waddling gait of the hedgehog, and its unfortunate defensive strategy of freezing or curling up when startled, which is a perfect defense against a fox, but a fatal move against a car tire, leading to road mortality being the single greatest known cause of death in many populations. A relentless pressure that severely undermines all conservation efforts. The conservation status of the European hedgehog, Erinaceus europaeus, is a story of alarming, rapid decline, a situation that has prompted national and international calls for urgent action. While the hedgehog is still widespread, its population numbers have plummeted across much of its range, particularly in Great Britain. In the year 2020, the species was officially added to the Red List of British mammals, classifying it as vulnerable to extinction in England, Scotland, and Wales, a sobering reflection of the devastating population crash. Estimates suggest that rural hedgehog populations have declined by as much as 50% since the turn of the millennium, and urban populations are also showing significant, albeit slightly slower, declines. This crisis is not due to a single cause, but rather a perfect storm of modern environmental pressures, acting synergistically to reduce both survival rates and breeding success. One primary threat is habitat fragmentation driven by intensive agriculture. Modern farming practices often involve the removal of traditional hedgerows, which are the hedgehog's primary highways, nesting sites, and rich foraging grounds. This creates vast, resource-poor fields that hedgehogs cannot easily cross, effectively isolating small populations. The use of large-scale, deep-tilling machinery also poses a direct threat, destroying nests and killing animals. In the suburban environment, fragmentation is caused by modern fencing, which creates impenetrable boundaries between gardens, preventing the hedgehogs from traversing their necessary kilometer plus nightly foraging routes. A single solid fence can make a valuable garden patch ecologically useless to a neighboring hedgehog, which requires access to several gardens to find enough food and mates. The issue of road mortality continues to be a relentless, non-compensatory factor in population decline. With millions of vehicles traveling at high speeds across the hedgehog's nocturnal foraging paths, the annual loss of adults is enormous and unsustainable. This constant loss of reproductive adults means that populations struggle to recruit new individuals to replace those lost, causing a slow but irreversible decline. Chemical poisoning, particularly from slug pellets, remains a significant localized threat. Although often marketed as humane, many older formulations contain metaldehyde, which is highly toxic. While the hedgehog prefers earthworms and beetles, it will consume poisoned slugs and snails, ingesting the toxin indirectly, leading to secondary poisoning. Furthermore, the loss of natural invertebrate prey due to the widespread use of broad-spectrum insecticides reduces the food supply, forcing hedgehogs to forage further and increasing their exposure to road risks. The urban garden, once a refuge, now harbors numerous anthropogenic traps. Hedgehogs can become fatally entangled in garden netting, fall into steep-sided garden ponds without shallow escape ramps, or be severely injured by strimmers and lawnmowers when resting in dense grass. One of the most common and tragic injuries occurs when bonfires are prepared and left to sit for a few days before lighting. Hedgehogs often crawl into these seemingly safe dark piles of wood and leaves to nest, leading to fatal burns when the fire is lit. In response to this crisis, conservation initiatives have gained significant momentum. The Hedgehog Street Campaign, a leading UK effort, is a citizen science and advocacy project focusing on creating hedgehog highways. These are small, 13 by 13 centimeter holes cut into garden fences at ground level, allowing free movement between properties. This simple community-driven act directly tackles the fragmentation problem at the suburban level. Other initiatives focus on providing safe, purpose-built hedgehog houses, hibernation boxes, and educating the public about making garden ponds safe by adding escape ramps. The increasing use of remote tracking and monitoring using miniature GPS trackers and footprint tunnels is also providing crucial data on movement patterns and population health, driving evidence-based conservation strategies designed to halt the decline of Erinaceinae europaeus before it slips into local extinction. The fate of the hedgehog has become an emblem for the overall biodiversity health of the human-dominated landscape, leading to a renewed appreciation for this creature in popular culture, folklore, and legend. The hedgehog's curious appearance and peculiar behavior have ensured its enduring, often contradictory, presence in popular culture, folklore, and legend throughout Western civilization, from ancient Greece to modern animation. The earliest and perhaps most persistent piece of hedgehog folklore originates from the Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder in the 1st century AD. In his Naturalis Historia, Pliny wrote of the hedgehog's ingenious method of harvesting fruit. According to the tale, the hedgehog would roll itself onto fallen apples or grapes in an orchard, impaling the fruit onto its spines, and then carry the load back to its burrow to store for later consumption. This story, though entirely untrue, because hedgehogs are strictly insectivorous and cannot perform this maneuver, captured the public imagination and was repeated as fact throughout the Middle Ages, cementing the hedgehog's image as a clever, resourceful, and slightly mischievous creature of the harvest. This legend symbolized the animal's perceived cunning and its ability to use its unique physical attributes for extraordinary ends. Another widespread piece of folklore, particularly in England, involved the hedgehog's reputation as a suckler of cow's milk. It was widely believed by farmers that the nocturnal hedgehog would sneak into barns and suck milk directly from the udders of sleeping cows. This belief, which is physiologically impossible due to the hedgehog's mouth structure, led to centuries of persecution and often violent removal of hedgehogs from farms. Like the apple-carrying myth, this legend reflects a human tendency to ascribe both cunning and villainy to the small, unseen creatures that inhabit the edges of human settlements, viewing the hedgehog as a clever pest to be managed. In modern popular culture, the hedgehog has enjoyed a dramatic transformation from folk villain to beloved character. The enduring affection for the animal is perhaps best exemplified by Mrs. Tiggy Winkle, the fictional laundress created by Beatrix Potter in 1905. Mrs. Tiggy Winkle, a tidy, meticulous hedgehog who washes clothes for woodland creatures, transformed a hedgehog into a sympathetic, domestic figure in children's literature. The character's neat, prickly appearance and helpful nature established the modern cultural perception of the hedgehog as a harmless, slightly shy friend of the garden, a persona that continues to drive current conservation efforts. In stark contrast to this cozy image, the hedgehog was explosively reinvented in the 1990s as a global icon of speed and attitude. Sonic the Hedgehog. The video game character, created by the Japanese company Sega, utilizes the hedgehog's ability to curl into a spiny ball, but radically reinterprets it as a high-speed, rolling weapon of attack. Sonic is fast, blue, and aggressive, a direct antithesis to the slow, brown, passive Erinaceus europaeus. This cultural adoption demonstrates the incredible versatility of the hedgehog's core identity, combining its vulnerability and its spiky defense, which allows it to be molded into both a gentle symbol of nature and a symbol of hyperspeed digital power. The immense global recognition of Sonic ensures that the physical form of the hedgehog remains instantly recognizable to millions, irrespective of their biological knowledge of the real-life animal. The duality of the ancient folklore of the clever thief and the modern image of the protected garden friend underscores the hedgehog's deep cultural significance. It is a creature that represents both the mystery of the natural world and the vulnerability of biodiversity in the face of human development. Its ability to successfully navigate the complex world of human perception, from the agricultural threat to the literary darling, mirrors its biological struggle to survive in the ever-changing habitat. The hedgehog's persistent waddle through our collective consciousness ensures that as scientists fight for its physical survival, its legend, built on centuries of observation, myth, and imagination, will continue to thrive, a small, spiky testament to the enduring power of mammalian evolution. The very essence of the hedgehog's survival, therefore, is rooted in the interplay of its physiological extremes and its behavioral flexibility. The necessity of its rigorous physiology, driven by the need to amass sufficient fat for its dramatic, heart-stopping hibernation, and the ever-present, instinctive contraction of the formidable panniculus carnosus muscle to deploy its protective mantle of quills, dictates the demanding nature of its active season. The sheer caloric requirement for this preparation is immense, compelling the creature to engage in its systematic, nocturnal foraging behavior, utilizing its sophisticated olfactory and auditory senses to hunt for high-protein invertebrates in the darkness. This nightly pursuit is what defines the large, overlapping home ranges and the general solitude of the animal, only briefly interrupted by the noisy courtship ritual of the hedgehog carousel during the short breeding season. a time when the female's focus shifts entirely to constructing the insulated maternity nest, essential for the safety of her vulnerable, soft-spined hoglets. The success of these behaviors is directly dependent on the availability of a suitable habitat, which has increasingly shifted from the dense continuous cover of natural woodland edge to the fragmented yet resource-rich mosaic of suburban gardens and rural hedgerows. This dependence on human-modified landscapes creates the ecological paradox of Erinaceus europaeus. Its specialized ecology as a keystone insectivore makes it a beneficial component of the ecosystem, controlling pest populations and engaging in complex ecological competition, particularly with the European badger, the only natural predator capable of reliably breaching its defense. Yet, this reliance on the edge environment exposes it to overwhelming anthropogenic threats. The slow, relentless population decline, driven by habitat fragmentation due to modern fencing and intensive agriculture, is accelerated by the acute, instantaneous mortality caused by road traffic and the insidious dangers of chemical poisoning from slug pellets. This crisis has demanded a vigorous, coordinated conservation response, centered on the simple yet profound act of promoting hedgehog highways to restore essential movement connectivity and mitigate the effects of isolation. Ultimately, the small, spiky form of the hedgehog is magnified in our minds by its rich history in folklore and legend, where the ancient myth of the fruit-carrying thief coexists with the modern reality of the vulnerable garden visitor. This cultural weight, from the pages of Beatrix Potter's gentle stories to the high-speed exploits of Sonic the Hedgehog, ensure us that the effort to protect Erinaceus europaeus is not merely an academic exercise in biodiversity management, but a profound cultural imperative to save a familiar, beloved icon of the temperate world. The hedgehog's continued existence in our fields and gardens is a silent, waddling barometer of how well we are managing the relationship between the wild and the domesticated, and whether we can provide the necessary physiological space for its complex, vulnerable life cycle to persist. Thank you, and good night.